Yes. So, yeah, we'll see if this necessary to use the microphone. Yeah. Welcome everyone. So we have our event on infrastructure. We have around 30 people who registered. So we're still expecting some people to come. Some people, unfortunately, due to the strike, didn't come. But we have also a live stream, so there are also some people following online. And we have also the recordings, which we will share internally after the event. So to give you the context, we are organizing 5 events between the beginning of March and the end of April. It's around topics that our members have chosen to be a top priority for the 2024 elections. We did an ID gathering phase where everyone could submit IDs from October to November last year. And based on that, we had a pre-referendum with more than 100 potential priorities. And from those priorities, the members have chosen this top 10. So I will not go to the entire top 10, but for example, yeah, infrastructure was on the first place. So that's why we have an event tonight, because we have an event on the first 5 challenges. There's also an event on mobility on the 22nd of March in Leuven. No, first the Mentimeter. No. Yes. So yeah, we also try to detect what is the opinion of everyone present before and after the event. We will also compare if the opinion changes during the event. So we will present you some statements and that we discussed internally already, and to gather your opinion around it. And also people online can participate. You can either go to scan the QR code or enter the code. So on my screen I have already the QR code. So you can go to menti.com. So yes. Yes, you can go to menti.com, and for who's already there, we will write the code 7342 7342 6046. Seven three four two 6046. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Can everyone read that? 7342 6046. Yes, I know. Is everyone ready? Yes. Okay, then we can go. So the first question, it's our topics that we discussed already, is how important is it to include, according to yourself, the following topics in the infrastructure plan for 2040? So we'll show the results when there are some people voted. All right, then we press hi. And can you refresh? So let's see what the results are. Mhm.
But that's not a presentation. You gotta send me that presentation.
Okay, sorry. We are quickly going to log in on other laptop to share the results because there were some technical complications. You can go to the next question. We will show you the results later. We will go to the next question. You can fill in the next questions. We will share the results later. Is it working now? So if you just skip all the questions, you can answer all questions. We will share the results later because there were some technical issues with it. So, yeah. We give you 1 minute, 2 minutes to finish the questions. We will share the results afterwards, and then we start the presentation. Yep. All right. Thank you for answering the questions. We hope to share the results soon, and we will now start the presentation. Yes? Mm. Yeah. Okay, sorry, thanks. Yeah. So the presentation is about the policies we discussed within Volt Belgium and Volt Europa regarding infrastructure. it will not be very long, around 15 to 20 minutes. And we will show you some things we discussed in either the Belgian policy calls or the European policy calls related to infrastructure. And after we also do a sort of Q&A discussion to let you ask questions. So it's a bit a mix of the Belgian and the European level sometimes, but it will be clear during the presentation. So first, of course, infrastructure is related to the climate crisis, because sustainable infrastructure like railways, circular economy has the potential to reduce carbon emissions, CO2 emissions. And we will show some examples of that. For example, in the transport sector, around 25% of the European carbon emissions come from the transport sector, of which 72% of cars, 14% of shipping, and 13% of aviation, around 0.5% from rail transport. No, we can go to the next slide, yes. We can all go, skip this, you can go to the next slide. So, of course, there are several things that are tried to reduce carbon emissions. One is investing in railway infrastructure, public transport in general. The other thing is shifting cars from fossil fuel cars to electric cars. And we also support the purpose of the idea of the European Union to by 2035 to only allow the sale of electric cars. But that doesn't mean that we should not overlook all aspects. For example, if you have a smartphone or a tablet, there's usually around 1 gram of lithium in it. But in an electric car battery, for example, there is more than 8 kilogram of lithium, which is 8,000 times more. And in the next slides we will see why that can be important. No. No. Yeah. So we see that the red bar shows the current evolution of lithium mining. But because electric car batteries need such an amount of lithium, it's simulated that when we will replace fossil fuel cars with electric cars, that the demand for lithium mining will increase sharply from less than 500 kiloton at present to more than 12,000 by 2050. And the reason that is important is also because for lithium mining you need deforestation as land use change, and the land use change, of course, that forests are a carbon sink, and as we see on this graph, this is fine. As we see on the graph on the right, then you see on the global level, the world level, the contributors to the atmospheric CO2 concentrations. You see, of course, coal, oil, land use, but land use is also an important carbon sink, and deforestation for lithium mining also contributes to reducing that carbon sink, and thereby also generating some net CO2 emissions. What you also see on the slide is at the top the evolution of the CO2 in the different sectors in Europe, and there you see, for example, that industry is a very sharp decline, but on the other hand, for example, transport is still rising on average, and for the other sectors it was decreasing, but it's also a little bit stagnating in the last years. So then if you compare a clean fossil fuel car with, a modern fossil fuel car with an electric car, you see that, of course, over the lifetime there is still a sharp reduction in CO2 emissions. So the orange line, I would say, shows the emissions of one of the most modern fossil fuel cars. But what we see, of course, is that because of the battery, mainly we see that an electric car starts a little bit higher, but of course by the end of lifetime cycle it still has less emissions than a fossil fuel car. So it's certainly an improvement in terms of CO2 emissions. but it's not that it's, but it's not that it's zero. And of course, how sharply the line increases, this graph is based on the average European electricity mix. But of course, if the energy is more clean, then the line can be more horizontal. Or it can be more vertical in the case of coal, for example. There's some slide before, I think. Some slide before. Yeah, so if you then add, for example, the Thales, it's one of the cleanest trains running on clean energy. Then we see, of course, there is still a difference between electric cars and trains in terms of carbon emissions. So it takes the average occupancy rate and the average emissions that are, in this case for the calculation, the emissions are used from the Thales website itself. Yeah, and then, so as mentioned, we certainly support the proposal to forbid the sale of fossil fuel cars after 2035, as the European Commission proposes. However, it's not a smart idea to replace 300 million fossil fuel cars with 300 million electric cars, and we should also try to reduce that by, for example, supporting electric car sharing systems, because one shared car can take more than 10 private cars from the road, appears from research, and of course also investing in public transport and railway systems. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so here you see again some carbon footprint from Geneva to Paris, but it shows a little bit the same as we saw on the graph, so yeah, can I go to the next one? Yeah, of course, just to mention, there are also other aspects than only climate and carbon emissions. For example, air pollution, the amount of space that is taken, because as you see in the picture on the right, to transport the same number of people over a distance in the same time, cars need a lot of more space than pedestrians, than cyclists, and also than railway systems. And there was also the graph about air pollution. You see, for example, the graph of car-free Sunday. On car-free Sundays in Brussels, when there are very few cars, you see that's the red line. Then the nitrogen dioxide concentrations are around 70% lower during the afternoon compared to average Sunday where there are cars in Brussels. So air pollution is also an important aspect next to the climate, the space occupation, and the green spaces. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so can you go one back? No, yeah, that's yeah, in between. So also to say, yeah, indeed, electric cars are also certainly from the air pollution perspective an improvement, because NO2, local NO2 reductions are largely reduced, but for example for PM2.5, which organizes for about 30% from cars, there you have tolerable and non-tolerable emissions, and then electric cars have around 40–50% reduction, but it's not that it goes to zero. There is still PM2.5 particulate matter air pollution from electric cars, but yes, less than from fossil fuel cars. It's the brakes and the friction between the surface and the wheels what causes this. So what's sometimes also forgotten in terms of economy. For example, 5 to 10% of heart attacks, cardiovascular disease are caused by motorized road traffic. And what's sometimes forgotten, that of course that also results in negative economic things, because the people who get a heart attack, they need a hospital treatment. The hospital treatment is paid by Social Security. Also sick leave, people cannot go for work for months. That's also paid by Social Security, which is also medication. So the air pollution has also a negative economic cost, apart from the other costs. So yeah, and while we see that carbon emissions and air pollution are better for electric cars compared to gasoline cars, fossil fuel cars, of course for congestion and the economic problems with congestion, that's not the case. They are the same. Yes. Thanks. So yeah, certainly the electric cars are certainly an improvement compared to fossil fuel cars, but you certainly cannot say that they are eco-friendly or health-friendly or economically friendly, because those problems still exist. They are less, but they still exist. And then we see that public transport and urban rail score better on most parameters. Yeah, the title one. Yeah, and this is something from our policy draft, so it's not set in stone, it's still debated and discussed. But for example, one of the proposals of Volt Europa and Volt Belgium is that by 2040 to reduce carbon emissions, that we will try to have high-speed rail in all cities with more than 2,000 inhabitants, and that all cities, that we also expand night trains to more cities, middle-sized cities, and that as much as possible cities with more than 50,000 people as inhabitants, or at least are connected to a rail system in a way. And also improve the operational management, and for example, run the trains later during the night, for example, not end service at 11 o'clock, but go to 1 or 2 in the night, or even the entire night. So that was about the environmental aspects and the health aspects, and then we come to the one of the taglines of the Volt Europa policy is also we need to have a Europe as an economic powerhouse, and in that regard, to have to make Europe an economic powerhouse. We also need very good and very sustainable infrastructure in the probably the best infrastructure in the world. Yes, I think it's fine. So there's an analysis of the infrastructure investment currently. This is specifically in the railway infrastructure, and we see that China is largely beating Europe. And if you go to the next slide, then we look to Belgium. There should be one slide in between. There should be one in between, yeah. Then see that Belgium, we spend 0.80% of our GDP in railway infrastructure, and that is actually less compared to the European average, with countries like France being close to 0.4%, Austria 0.42%, Switzerland 0.5%, and China 0.85%. And then also see, if we see how this evolves, then we also see that actually in Belgium it's declining instead of decreasing instead of increasing. Sorry. And then a parameter where Belgium scores better is the share of rail infrastructure on the total railroad infrastructure investments. Then Belgium is on the third place with around 50%. However, the total infrastructure is not that high in Belgium, but we spend around 50% on the rail infrastructure. But like countries in Austria is the big winner with around 80% invested in rail infrastructure compared to the total transport infrastructure investments. You also see that China has a very fast expansion of their railway network. In 2008 there was close to nothing, and now by 2020 they expanded their network enormously with high-speed rail in many places, and also regular rail networks, and there are much more railways in the planning. Of course, you could say that, of course, that may help China to also contribute to the Paris Agreement and to reduce the carbon emissions. But on the other hand, there's also an economic initiative because they want to maintain strong economic growth and therefore also invest in their infrastructure. So, and then recently, there should be one in between, I think. Yes. So recently there was also in the United States the bipartisan infrastructure bill with more than $1 trillion invested in infrastructure. And actually, if you see, this is a Google Trends analysis. What many people, what people look on the internet, how many times they put a search term into the internet, and what we then see is that suddenly the slide disappeared. No, it's the wrong one. No, the other one, sorry. Yes, that one. To see that infrastructure and high-speed rail, that people start talking about it online suddenly after the talks about the $1 trillion infrastructure plan. Since 2-3 years they are talking a lot about infrastructure. Well, before it was also not that much, but now they have the 2035 infrastructure, the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, and that results in, you can skip this one, that results in this proposed, yeah, this one. That results in the proposed Amtrak system in 2035, So I think legacy existing network, and what they try to do by 2035, based on the new infrastructure bill, is to implement the services that are colored, for example, in blue or in orange or in light blue. So it's quite a lot of places, especially in the densely populated northwest of the United States. There are a lot of new high-speed railways. Yes. Yeah, that we already had, but yes. So of course, besides there's actually a summary of the external costs. So we already talked about climate, air pollution, noise, accidents, etc. And then we see that, as given the example of the heart attacks, that is also covered by Social Security. That that cars have quite high external costs, and they're certainly lower for for electric cars, but it's not that it goes from very high to zero. And then buses and railways score better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is. No. Yes, so the third part, so we had already the infrastructure legislation and climate legislation. We had to make of Europe an economic powerhouse, that we need very good infrastructure, and then the third one is infrastructure connects people. And there we talk about rolling out about 5G networks to connect people offline, and better railway infrastructure to connect people offline. So here you see the map of the 5G coverage. We have to take further steps to roll out 5G because apparently, as you can see from the map, the COVID vaccines did not deliver on rolling out 5G. So we have to, as some people claimed, so we have to take other steps to roll it further out. What's also important for infrastructure, of course, that you see that often a small group of people oppose all kind of infrastructure projects by legal action. For example, Natuurpunt even tried to boycott through legal action just a bicycle bridge. So that shows that often it's difficult to get the infrastructure implemented, and that's also why there are often delays. It's one of the reasons. So we have to also see to maybe cut some of the red tape that currently exists to speed up some processes if that's possible. So based on that example, so sometimes if you look to what other parties propose, what other movements propose, then sometimes in Europe or Belgium, infrastructure seems too ideologically left-wing for the right wing and too ideologically right-wing for the left wing. But based on science and pragmatism, there is certainly a case to make for more infrastructure investments. Then very quickly, next, yeah. One of the bottlenecks currently in Belgium is of course the delays that are caused by the capacity saturation in Brussels Central Station. This is a study from some people from the VUB, from this university, that investigated several scenarios to solve this bottleneck. So we go through them. So one is to cut trains in Brussels Midi and Brussels North. That means that most trains don't travel through Brussels but stop either in Midi and North. But of course it means if you work in Liège, if you live in Liège and work in Brussels South, that you have to have more exchanges before reaching your destination, and so it's not very attractive. They also conclude this is the worst alternative in their study. And then we have, for example, we can go quickly. We have, for example, terminus we had, but then we have, I can go to the east-west. So then there are alternatives. Building a new tunnel through Brussels West. There are plans. There are scenarios to build a new tunnel through Brussels East, or a double north-south. That means just the current tunnel goes from Brussels North, Central, South to build a second tunnel there. Some alternatives are to build a separate tunnel for the TGV that goes directly from Brussels South to Brussels North or Schaerbeek. And there are two last alternatives are to enlarge Brussels Central to build more tracks in Brussels Central. And another one is to build a tunnel from Brussels west to Brussels Schuman. And the last alternative, the southeast, is to build a tunnel from Brussels south to Brussels Schuman. And then on the next slides, we see how they evaluated the different scenarios in the study. And yeah, sorry, the legend is in Dutch, but basically, it's on the x-axis you see the different scenarios. For example, north-south TGV, NS-TGV is to build a separate tunnel for TGV. Enlarge means enlarging Brussels Central Station. Southeast means a tunnel from Brussels south to Brussels Schuman. West-east means a tunnel from Brussels west to Brussels Schuman. But then they rated on different aspects, and also they let the organizations involved, so like Intrabel and NBS, the regional public transport providers, rate the different scenarios. And what we then see is, for example, that the southeast from Brussels south to Brussels Schuman, that is, according to the stakeholders in this study, the most popular alternative. Well, as mentioned, the terminus, that they cut the trains in two, that's the least popular alternative for most of the organizations and stakeholders involved. And of course, it's important, what we say in the program is, we don't say that solution should it be, but we say in the program that, yeah, we should solve the bottleneck of delays and we should come with a long-term solution to safeguard the reliable railway infrastructure for the next generations to come. Some other things we investigated in the program is to increase the number of tracks if there's a need for, to increase capacity, or to upgrade the existing speeds. For example, they're doing that at the moment on different places, for example, from Brussels to Luxembourg. So on some other places it may be also possible, on some other places not, but it can also reduce travel time and increase comfort for some movements. Then bicycle infrastructure we also talked about, so I will not go in detail, but if you cycle in Brussels, I mean, it's not yet like some Dutch cities like Utrecht, there's still some improvement possible, so we also emphasize that. Then, of course, it's not only important to have high-speed rail and long-distance rail, but it's also important to have urban public transport. There's a case study from Nantes, where they saw that they had a bus on the 4 main lanes. This was not profitable. It was a 48% cost coverage rate. But after they replaced the bus with a tram, despite it was a higher investment initially, they said then it became profitable, moved from being a loss to becoming profitable. So yeah, of course there are some reasons why people may prefer a tram over a bus, because it's about comfort, reliability, capacity, also how many people you can transport. So one of the other proposals we're looking is in Belgium to have by 2028 a night train from Brussels and some other Belgian cities to at least 10 European destinations. Currently we have only the night train to Vienna, and that's thanks to the Austrian railway company. But Belgium can also take the initiative to actively invest in it, and yeah, itself also exploit night speed rail. We also, so as mentioned, we want to increase some spending on infrastructure, but for that, of course, we want to be credible on financing, how we will finance that. And the things we are looking into here is, for example, congestion charging in cities where there exists an urban rail network, like Ghent, Brussels, Antwerp, Charleroi. So most mobility experts are in favor of kilometer charging in the entire country. That means that you pay for every kilometer you drive. But of course, because in rural areas, there's not always so many public transport, we first want to look into the more easy to implement alternative that mainly affects urban areas, and put a small congestion charging in these cities. But mainly for persons coming from externally in the city, with a similar to the London scheme, 80–90% reduction for the residents in the city. So if you're going to do groceries in the city, you will pay very limited amounts and not that much. Yeah. Okay, that was it for now. So if there are any questions, there are 5 minutes for any questions, and otherwise we'll move to this for later tonight. Yeah. Yes.
Just state your name and your question.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Marie Lemuel. It's a really simple question. To what extent is the bit you talked about on the trains going through Brussels and finding a solution, at which level is that relevant? Is it the national level or the regional level? Who are the deciding authorities involved in making that decision?
In other words, is it federal or regional competence?
Of course, the railways are federal competence, but of course, I mean, if they do some, I mean, it's good to involve the regions to avoid that regions will boycott what the federal level is doing. But it's a federal competence, and of course, if you are talking about solving the bottleneck in Brussels Central, then of course, everyone in Belgium benefits from it because all trains go through there. So, Flemish people, Walloon people, they also benefit from it. So, I mean, I think it should be federal investment, yes. Whatever the solution is. Any other questions, or?
So from the, since I have the microphone, my name is François. The studies you showed that were conducted by the VUB on the different possibilities for Brussels in terms of optimizing,
Yes.
What was the conclusion? Like, what was among the best solutions? Because when I see that, it looks like an art piece from I don't know which modern artist, but it doesn't mean much.
So they evaluated 7 alternatives, but they also said in their conclusion of their publication, in part it's scientific, but in part it's also political, and it's also about the stakeholders. For example, on the last slide, you saw how the different 7 options to solve the bottleneck scored on the on things like passenger reliance, making sure the number of passengers transported. On this slide, you see the stakeholders like the federal administration, NMBS, Infrabel, the regional OV public transport providers, how they rated in the VUB study these alternatives. But yeah, they say there are some alternatives that look good, like the southeast, the Brussels South to Schumann, but they didn't claim it should be this solution, because also they say it's also in part political, and it's not only scientific to decide what it should be.
It looks from the graph you're showing us that the southeast solution is the one with the most positive feedback.
Among the stakeholders that participate in the study, yes.
Okay, so in other words, that might be among the best solutions, correct?
It might be among the best solutions, but we also say we want one of the good solutions, but we say it should be solved, but we don't say it should be per se this solution now, but because there are many people involved, and I mean, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marina Potapidou from CR. Thanks, Bram, for this very good, comprehensive presentation. On just one question, on one of the slides, you mentioned that there is a need to increase the trucks. Now, how would your solution be in highly congested urban nodes where there is no possibility to increase the number of trucks?
Yeah, that's very true. It's not possible everywhere, but in some places it's possible. For example, they are now doubling the tracks, I think, between Ghent and Brussels, of this Ghent and Brugge, Ghent and Bruges, sorry. There's another map. Yeah, it's certainly true. It's not possible everywhere, and it's also to see with the stakeholders, with the relevant companies, NMBS and Infrabel, but also with the mobility experts, where it is possible and where it's not possible, and where it can solve something and where it cannot solve something. We say also we look into that. That's where possible. We maybe want to increase from 2 to 3 tags or 2 to 4, but of course it's not everywhere possible. That's true. Yeah.
I might elaborate a bit more in my presentation. It was just also how you call it, voorbereiding.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. We can talk about, Alexandra. We can talk about expanding everything, but what about making it cheaper to go by train, or to making it more accessible for people?
that's actually where we talk about in priority 2, mobility and public transport, because in priority 1 is infrastructure, and there we talk about infrastructure, railway infrastructure, but also other infrastructure. And priority 2, we talk about indeed reducing the cost for people, for example, by having day passes, month passes, and year passes, at a reduced tariff compared to what it's now. To know more on that, come to our event on the 22nd of March in Leuven.
Yes, hi, Emeric Massot from, sorry I arrived a bit later, but I just wanted to make 2 small reactions on what was just being said. So I work for the Belgian rail infrastructure manager. So doubling the number of tracks or increasing number of tracks, actually a topic which is very, let's say, prominent in our world, because actually in the 80s, end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, Belgium has decided to double the number of tracks on most of the lines around Brussels, and we're now seeing the near completion of it. So you see, it's a political battle that lasts for nearly, I would say, a lifetime of a politician to be able to realize, because you need a lot of expropriations, because you need a lot of permits, because there are a lot of reluctance to changing major infrastructure. So it's something that has to be very highly reflected, and probably will elaborate this on your presentation. And also it's something that is extremely costly. So when we talk about making it more accessible and therefore cheaper, it's nearly antinomic, because in the end somebody has to pay for it, and it's actually a very tricky, let's say, debate within the society on how to actually implement this in its most efficient way. But yeah, so it's this is to spur a bit the debate.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments or remarks? Or? No. Yeah. Then we give the floor to our next speaker. Yeah, we have slides as a PowerPoint presentation.
The water infrastructure.
No, that's later. It's railway. It's a PowerPoint presentation. No?
Where's the PowerPoint presentation?
It's attached in the.
We'll be just quickly opening the PowerPoint. But perhaps we can already invite the speaker to present herself briefly while we are opening the presentation.
Thank you. If it's okay, I may sit here, if you don't mind, yes.
So we give the floor to Marina
Yes.
from the CER.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. Bram, you already made the case for railways. And yeah, I will elaborate a bit more further on that, and I will also take a more European and international stance of the railways. So my name is Marina Potapidou, and I'm the Infrastructure Policy Advisor at CER, the Community for European Railways and Infrastructure Companies. If I may move to the next slide, you will see what basically a few facts and figures. Yeah. So we were founded even before I was born in 1988. We're based here in Brussels, and we're staffed by about 20 employees of various nationalities. So here you can see what the abbreviation CER stands for. In the next slide, you will see what our mission is. We represent the interests of our members, so railway companies and railway infrastructure managers on the EU policy-making scene at the European Union, where we support an improved business and regulatory environment for European RUs and IMs. So we basically work with all the EU institutions, with the European Commission, the Council, the European Parliament. We also work with the European Railway Agency that is based in Valenciennes in France. We work with other railway associations and other transport modes associations. In the next slide, you will see basically the variety of our CR membership. So we represent the entire railway system, 78% of the European railway network length, 81% of the freight businesses in Europe, and 94% of the passenger. Yeah. In the next slide, I won't stay there long. It's just so you have an overview of our members. My colleague from Infrabel is part of another association from EIM, European Infrastructure Managers, with whom we are also working and cooperating very much on the topics on the EU arena. So you will see also Thalys are also and SNCB are also our members. We also have partners from Ukrainian railways, Georgian railways, Japan, etc. Just one more slide about us. So our diversity, we represent 16.4% of passenger operators, 32.8% of integrated companies. That means companies that include also, yes, diversity, yes, sorry. So yeah, 32.8% of integrated companies, that's companies that include also the IMs and the RUs as well. That could be also freight and passenger RUs. 14.9% infrastructure managers, 10.4% passenger and freight operators. So we are quite diverse with our members. We have these long-established bodies and also new entrants. We have private and public sector organizations. So we are bridging all the voices of the railways within CR. Okay, then we can start to the most interesting part. So why, first of all, invest in rail infrastructure here? So infrastructure is to be modern, efficient, and reliable, and it's the backbone of the European economy. Basically, the rail network in Europe enables the transport of passengers and goods across member states with high emissions efficiency and low emissions. Here you see the length of the EU's rail network, 200,099 kilometers. This is really equivalent to traveling around the world 5.5 times. And currently, 11,526 kilometers is the length of the high-speed railway network in Europe, and it keeps growing year by year. And 4 out of 5 trains are already running on electricity, which is becoming greener. We have more and more of our members who are committed in building and modernizing their infrastructure, electrifying it, making it greener, and hence that's why you see these good results, good numbers that they keep growing, becoming better. So an efficient and reliable infrastructure and a safe one can become such if investments in rail infrastructure are happening across Europe and within the member states. So Bram showed some not that very, I would say, a bit gloomy results for Belgium. So we're trying to stay positive, but indeed, the European Commission, with the multi-annual financial framework, and the Connecting Europe facility, which are financial programs, they are also helping member states to invest more in their infrastructure. But infrastructure shouldn't be seen as its own. What's very important, and always important to keep in mind, that railways it's an interface and it's a connected system. You cannot have infrastructure without having the trains on them, and you can't have trains without having a good, reliable and safe infrastructure. So if we move on to the next slide, yes, here you will see some good numbers also on the passenger transport. So the European railways, we bring passengers to their work and school, leisure activity or holiday destination. So it's from long distance to local and regional trains. Railways have always something to offer each customer for each situation. Currently, 9.8 billion passengers are transported by EU railways every year, and more than 90% of Europe's passenger trains are on time. 4 out of 5 Europeans take the train, that's about 80%. 67% are occasional travelers, and 13% use it frequently, that means at least once a week. Yeah. Railways do not only transfer people, of course, we also transfer freight and goods. In the next slide, sorry. Yes, sorry, thanks. I hope you all heard me by now. No, that's the slide before. Yeah. We also, European railways also transfer goods. So the rail freight is particularly really well placed that reduces Europe's dependence on imported fuels due to high energy efficiency and major reliance on electric energy. So the rail freight can support Europe's competitiveness and also rail's competitiveness vis-à-vis other transport modes. So you see here also some facts and figures. 377 million tonnes per kilometer is the estimated freight volume in the current member states in Europe in 2020. 16% of inland freight was transported by rail in the current member states in 2020. Of course, here we need to keep in mind that in 2020 we had the crisis, the COVID, so the numbers, normally they're supposed to be a bit higher than this. And yeah, vis-à-vis the 74%, that is the roads that transfer the goods. And we have also 6% of inland waterways and 4% pipeline. These are the numbers for freight. In the next slide, yes. Yeah, that's the one. So yeah, the economic footprint of railways. Rail is an essential component of the transport system, and transport is really an essential function of any modern economy, as Bram also rightly stated. So currently, 1 million of persons are directly employed by railways and 1.3 million indirectly. That means one job in railways creates more than one other job in indirectly dependent economic activities. In the next slide, yes. On the environment, so yes, railways are the most sustainable transport modes, as you've already seen, and rail contributes to reducing the transport users' environmental burden on society. It combines energy-efficient mobility with fewer emissions. So rail is the most efficient form of passenger and freight transport, and the greenhouse gas emission intensity is improved by more than 10% between 2014 and 2018. Railways is also energy efficient, is 7 times more energy efficient than road due to physical advantages such as lower rolling stock and air resistance. And rail accounts for just 1.8% of total EU energy consumption in transport that carries 17% of freight and around 8% of passengers in the EU 27 inland transport. And that's again numbers pre-COVID. Currently the numbers after COVID are slightly different. Yeah, in the next slide. Okay. So yes, when we talk about railways, we also talk about interoperability and safety. Both enhance and ensure the seamless and safe circulation of passengers and goods on railway vehicles across the European Union and even beyond its borders. And as I've already mentioned, rail is the safest mode of land transport. Here you can see also the fatalities per billion passenger kilometers for different modes of transport between these certain years. So railway passenger really is at the bottom, while the car occupancy is quite high, I'm afraid, as Bram also have rightly stated. Yes, all right, this has been also some good numbers on the rail infrastructure, the passenger, the freight, and about TEN-T. What is TEN-T? In the next slide, you will see a bit more details, and I hope you can read the small letters. So TEN-T is the Trans-European Network for Transport. What is that? It's basically maps, European maps. It's a European network of all transport modes, not just railway lines. So you see, you have here lines, railway lines, roads, inland waterways, maritime shipping routes, ports, airports, and railroad terminals. So they are currently made up of different stages of infrastructure projects. There are 3 maps. The basic is the core network, and that is the highest strategic and most prioritized lines in Europe. The lines are not all built. They are currently, some are already built, others are currently work in progress, and the vision is to have this core network built by 2030. And then you have the comprehensive network, which comprises of the core and extra additional lines that ensures accessibility to all European regions. So it goes really into more details, and it adds more urban nodes, it adds more cities, more freight terminals, more ports, etc. So currently you see here that the railways are 125,000 kilometers, and that is part of the TEN-T, out of the 215,000 kilometers of the railways in Europe. The roads, and that is also on the TEN-T, is 115,000 kilometers. Inland waterways, 16,000 kilometers. And the current European high-speed network, as I've said before, is 11,526 kilometers. And they're all growing year by year, because most of the infrastructure managers in Europe are really committed in completing these networks. Currently, there is also the extended network. That is a new proposal from the European Commission that they wish to have it completed by 2040. And it's an additional layer that defines the basis of the priority sections, which are part of the European transport corridors. So this is basically the core, all the core network and the most strategic part of the comprehensive network. So we have 3 deadlines: 2030, 2040, and 2050. And this is, as I've said, a work in progress. So the completion of this trans-European transport network relies on the infrastructure investment with a focus on cross-border projects that brings EU added value and territorial cohesion. So why is rail important for this trans-European transport network? As we said, rail, most sustainable transport mode. Rail emits 9 times less CO2 than other modes. And I've seen also Bram also mentioned that it's 0.4% of the EU transport emissions that come from rail, and that carries 17% of Europe's freight and 8% of passengers. So the numbers are really significant. Rail also complements other transport modes. They don't work alone. Of course, we are all for multimodality. And here we efficiently relieve pressure on congested roads. So one freight has the capacity of over 40 trucks. That's also quite a significant number, right? That really you can think about the relief of congested roads that currently is happening, and also for less accidents on roads as well. So investing in rail infrastructure, such as also trucks, tunnels, and stations, has really a major positive impact on the economy. The rail infrastructure investments that generate 39 billion euros of gross value added, and that also generates more than 500,000 jobs. Yeah. No, I'm still here. Yes, sorry. So railways help also forge a European identity and shape common values through accessibility, city-to-city travel. The European Commission already since 2018 have been issuing free tickets for at least 130,000 80-year-olds who have traveled through these Interrail tickets for free, thanks to this Discovery EU program. So that was also quite a good raising awareness of traveling safe and traveling environmentally friendly across Europe. So a strong and attractive rail network connecting passenger and freight terminals also can serve as the backbone of the sustainable transport ecosystem for all the generations to come. Yes, and if you can move to the next slide, please. Yes. And currently the European Commission in 2021 proposed a revised regulation for this Trans-European Transport Network with new maps. The file is, the legislative dossier is currently under negotiation with the European, with the MEPs at the European Parliament, and soon the Council, together with the MEPs, will start their negotiations, and we hope by 2024, early 2024, to have this revised regulation that governs the TEN-T. So this is the momentum now, the momentum to grab, to make this TEN-T stronger for railways, so to promote the creation of this interoperable European high-speed network. And this high-speed network will not only link capitals, but also major cities in Europe, connecting urban nodes and airports, and supporting the development in general of the international passenger services. There is the vision of the sustainable and smart mobility transport in Europe, in the EU, that wants to double the high-speed traffic by 2030. At the moment, this will require at least a 75% increase in the current network length of these 11,526 kilometers. So that's quite some work, I would say. Yes, I won't go through all the technical details here, but so the ERTMS, what this ERTMS is about is the European Rail Traffic Management System. It's a very important digital European traffic management that will help make the railway network more interoperable and safer. So there is also making the rail digital transformation into infrastructure and investment priorities. So make the smart capacity management, which is what Bram said on the doubling trucks. So doubling trucks will not always be possible, unfortunately, in congested networks. And building new infrastructure takes years and years to build. So what our infrastructure managers are committed in doing is in making a smart capacity management, which is new processes like timetable redesign, which is harmonizing the timetables, harmonizing the capacity management across borders, and digital capacity management, making a smart booking system for freight companies to really book a path, a capacity path of the railways, to book it, to not have a wasted capacity as well, and to have a commitment. So yes, what else we need in this stronger and revised TEN-Ts to further integrate the urban nodes and the missing last mile infrastructure for freight and multimodal connections for passengers. Because railways, they cannot travel from door to door. Here we need the multimodality and the good last mile connections in the European network. And the infrastructure requirements, which is basically standards, railway standards, that make the whole railway network interoperable. So this new TEN-T, the new Trans-European Transport Network, sets these ambitious infrastructure requirements, such as the loading gauge, a minimum speed of 160 kilometers per hour for passenger rails. But of course, all these are quite ambitious. The deadlines are, well, it seems like it's still a long way to go, but for railways, that's actually just around the corner. And it's important to make good use of European and national funds and invest in railways. And so here I come to my next point, why investing in railways for sustainable TEN-T. So with the right policies and rail as a backbone, the implementation of TEN-T can help reach the key EU Green Deal objectives. And the Green Deal is basically by 2050 to have a zero emission mobility in Europe. So it's important to ensure the modal shift to rail from other more polluting transport modes and achieving this 90% reduction in transport emissions by 2050. To double the high-speed rail traffic by 2030 and triple it by 2050, and to increase rail traffic rail freight traffic by 50% by 2030 and double it by 2050. So these are the goals and targets of the Green Deal and of the European Smart and Sustainable objectives, and they are quite ambitious. And we hope that with the targeted investments, we can make this happen. So currently there are numerous projects from major works across the European map to smaller upgrades, and they're progressively building this TEN-T vision for rail, making railways the backbone of European mobility. But still massive investments are unfortunately needed to connect the railways, both physically and digitally, and with other transport modes, increasing inter and multimodality. And now, yes, with this global climate emergency and clear EU climate objectives to meet, it is really vital to invest in green transport like rail at the heart of the TEN-T. But we can also here talk about outside of the TEN-T, go into the more details, go into every major city and every capital of EU. Yes. So if we could move to the next slide. I think that's going to be my last slide. Yes. So here, just a few words on the economic case for implementing a high-speed rail master plan. So by 2050, almost 50,000 kilometers will be needed. That means increasing 4 times the existing high-speed rail network to connect all major urban agglomerations in the EU and accession countries. Sorry, I should have actually mentioned prior to that these are conclusions from a study that has been commissioned by the Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking. And these are the conclusions. So the investment cost will be high, averaging 550 billion euros, but the return will provide to the society a net positive benefit of 750 billion euros. So that's quite a return back. The high-speed rail network may not only deliver 5 tons of CO2 saving for the EU Green Deal, but also provide 1.5 million job years for the economy in the long run. And last but not least, investment needs to be coupled with a sound transport policy that promotes technology and sustainable mobility, delivering these EU goals of modal shift. And I will close to that. I think I didn't make another slide. No, that's about it from my side, and I'm happy to answer questions or to have a really good debate on the railways. Thank you.
I had a question about the. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. My name is Bernard. I'm a Vault member. I had a question because I was thinking there are the things that are preventing either people from taking the train or even like companies carrying freight around with lorries. Why then they wouldn't use the railway? And I'm thinking it's because probably there's a question of costs, and also there's a question that when you reach your destination or when you have to get to the train, then you still need the road transport. And I see a lot about like speed, but I don't hear a lot about interoperability of road and rail. And I'm thinking, for instance, why don't we have trains where you can take your car and go across your electric car, and then you recharge it on the train, you get to the other side of Europe, you don't have to worry, then you still got your car and you can drive around. That could be a very good incentive for people to take the train, because they know when they reach their destination, they're still free to move around. But I don't hear anything in that space. I was just wondering if there was anything planned around that.
Thank you. Indeed, currently nobody can take their car on the train. That would be actually a great idea. Maybe we can propose it to the next European Commission. Yeah, but currently with there is this alternative fuels regulation, and the Commission is planning on more charging stations in railway stations, so more where people can charge their cars. Indeed, also more biking parkings in stations, so people can also switch from the bikes to their railways. So yeah, in Belgium you have a lot of those. So there is some ongoing work on this multimodality, on working modes together, and hopefully we will see more, of course, also in the future on that. But maybe my colleague can answer more on the having more cars now currently on the trains.
Yeah, I mean, it exists. The most famous one, like older people will remember Train Autocouchette. That's you put your car on the train, and then the night train. There were lots of connections between Belgium and Italy and Spain in the past. They still exist. Hamburg, Vienna, Hamburg, Innsbruck is one example. In Switzerland, there's a few connections, but I think this does not solve the last mile issue, because it's only for very specific long distance route. It's actually a big business, for example, in the United States as well. It's a new company doing this between the region outside of New York to Florida, so that people can take their own cars rather than driving or flying and renting cars. Americans don't like that. They like to have their cars destination. Yeah. So thanks a lot for the presentation. Maybe I can ask already a couple questions, then I'll let the others as well. I was wondering what you meant when you said there's 11,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. What is the definition of high speed in this case? At least I didn't see it in the slide. And then the second question is, when you talk about backbone, that railway is the backbone of freight. When it's only 16% compared to 74% on road, I would say that the road is the backbone, but it's, again, a question on the definition of this. Thanks.
Thank you. On the high-speed rail network is 200 kilometers per hour or more, but currently there is a debate whether definition of high-speed needs to be include 180 kilometers per hour or more. So if we would include 180, then it would have been more than the actual number that I've showed on the high-speed railway network. Yes, that's 200 kilometers per hour or more. And the other question.
But the backbone. Again, the definition of backbone.
Yeah. Well, we should become the backbone. Unfortunately, currently we're not. It's true that the freight business is a tricky one, because indeed it's currently cheaper for the freight shippers to take the trucks on the road. we're also here talking about the reliability of the freight businesses. And that's why we should indeed become here the backbone for freight businesses as well, if we want to move to the zero emission mobility in the future as well.
I think is it correct? In the United States, it's 27 or 26%. Sorry.
The freight.
The freight
By
is 26% by train
So we
compared to. It's good to sometimes compare also
Yeah.
with other continents.
China is even more.
Yeah.
China with One Belt, One Road initiative that they're building currently, they're really even planning to do it up to 50%. So it's even more indeed. So it's always good for to see Europe, including Belgium, to see how the other countries are doing. So China indeed is investing heavily everywhere, not only in China, but also in other continents, including many European countries.
Thanks. Any other questions? I'll start there and then come to you.
Thanks. Hi, Johannes, Volt Europa. Yeah, you talked about the fact like how important the investments into the rail infrastructure will become or already are. I was wondering, like, where do you see the most resistance in Europe, and where do you see the most commitment to making these investments happening in terms of like countries?
In terms of countries, well, indeed there is a big variation. Every country has their own investment plans. Some countries invest heavily more in rail, others invest in other transport modes. So the resistance really varies also per year and per the European also program for financing. Because we have now currently different programs. So the most important is the Connecting Europe Facility program that at least 70% of the funds there go to rail. That's quite a significant number, because railways are expensive to also invest in if you compare it to a road or maritime. And then there are other also programs that are more focused on digital, but their railways can also benefit. So it depends also how much money the Commission and the EU is offering, then how much the European Investment Bank is offering, because there are also quite some loans. Other member states and governments, such as France, is doing a lot of green bonds, and railways they benefit also a lot from these green bonds. But it varies really. I think Bram had a very good that slide on the different countries that invested differently on railways. I think that was up till 2020, right?
Yeah, I think so. Also slides with the percentage of GDP invested in infrastructure per country. But yeah, I think during my presentation, the slides were sometimes a bit mixed up, and not always the right slide showed up. But I think it was indeed one of the slides that it was.
So wondering what is the source of that slide?
Yeah, I think some organization related to USO. Yeah, I think one of the previous. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Just OECD is something related to the an economical organization.
Okay, so you have here some also members, countries from outside the EU.
Yeah, there are
So
some countries. The first is China, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, of course. I mean, China wins by far. I hope that answered somehow a bit.
Yeah, you were talking about those, like the funds that can be drawn from. Like, how big are those? Like, are those funds you're talking about, like in terms of money?
For instance, the Connecting Europe Facility. So the biggest fund for all transport modes from the current multi-annual financial framework of the EU, which spans from a period of 2021 to 2027. That was about, if I'm not mistaken, 20 billion. But exactly. So it's really a very small fraction, and I can already tell you that most of these funds have already been used. And that's from 2021 to now, 2023. And we still have 4 years to go. So we really hope that the member states can invest more to railways and to other sustainable transport modes. So, yeah.
Thanks. And I think there was a question above.
My name is Larry. I have a question about your rail freight targets. So by 2030, you want to increase by 50%. So that's in 7 years. And then by 2050, double, meaning another 50%. And that would take 20 years. So it seems that your growth rate is slowing. Is that because you're going to sort of reach maximum capacity and then you have to invest to increase the net, to enlarge the network, or what are the constraints?
That's a very good question. Indeed, there are many constraints also, like you mentioned, on the capacity, and I agree there. Capacity is a big issue because in highly congested parts, capacity is a major issue that can prevent the growth of railway traffic. But also just to clarify that these targets are coming from the European Union as a vision. So I'm trying to be diplomatic here. I'm not saying that we're going to reach it. We do hope that, of course, this is the target, and we are working towards it. And we hope that with the Trans-European Transport Network requirements and revision of the regulation, we can reach those. But yeah, and indeed, I would say that the highest bottleneck obstacle is not only the capacity, but also the prices as well. We have the track access charges. So from the infrastructure managers, the price the operators who are using the truck. And some might say that the truck access charges are quite expensive, but of course this is due to the wear and tear cost of the infrastructure, and also to the high demands of maintaining the infrastructure, of upgrading, modernizing the infrastructure to make sure that trains are running safely on them. So this is also quite a subject that makes freight railways and passenger as well a bit more difficult to compete with other cheaper transport modes that emit, unfortunately, more CO2 emissions.
We need to save the screen from shutting down. We have time for one or two more questions if there are any questions. Yeah. Ready?
Hello, my name is Jordi. I had a question more about the budgets. Also, you have shown the map with like the core network that you want to achieve by 2030, and then the extended network and so on. So like a lot of plans to build more rails. And I was wondering, like, where does the budget come from? Is this like only a European budget, or do you also expect a national government to use budget, and how is the split between European national budgets and?
Yes, indeed. So as I've mentioned before, most of these funds will come from the member states, from the national budget, because just taking the European budget is impossible. It will not be, they will not be able to complete even 1/3 of the whole network. How it's split now, we have that regulation, and it obliges the member states to complete these lines, this infrastructure. So they're obliged. So I would say some countries have a fair advantage in terms of having more budget and having fewer congested infrastructure, having having it easier, while other countries, such as Balkans and Eastern European countries, it's more difficult for them to also get the national funding from the member states. So it really varies country by country. But certainly the majority of it is the national budget, and the European Commission's intent was to oblige the member states to invest in these strategic infrastructure projects. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, thanks. Other questions?
Ask one more question. I just wanted to clarify again, the American numbers is 28% of goods is by ton kilometers is transported by rail, but it's also 40% of the long distance travel. Exactly how they define this, I didn't read in detail. But I have also a small question about the ERTMS deployment. At least this is also a thing I work in at the moment. But you say by 2050 the idea is that it would be fully deployed. Does that mean only on the TEN-T network, or is it on regional lines as well, or would that be not the aim?
By 2050 only on the TEN-T network, but I also mentioned the comprehensive network. And that means indeed also urban nodes,
yes.
Smaller cities. So the comprehensive network is really taking a more detailed map. And so, yes, the idea is to have it in most of the European map. As an example, in Belgium as well as Denmark, we will normally finish by 2025 the complete network in ERTMS. So we'll be the two first countries to be fully deployed with ERTMS. It's easier because we're also smaller countries. Unfortunately, other countries are well behind, and they will not be able even to complete the network by 2040. But hopefully their governments will invest more heavily in having this ERTMS deployment, which is part of the digital trains that will help make them more interoperable and safer.
Okay, thank you. Is there one very last question, or? Last question for you.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, which are the countries that won't be able to complete by 2040, and which are the countries that will complete?
Oh. I don't want to name and blame and shame. That's also relative, because it's also, they might surprise us. Who knows? Maybe the budget. The governmental budget, they will indeed add in their national investment that they will need to invest, that they're going to invest more on ERTMS. But I would say it's easy to split Europe in different, yes. I think it's easy to guess at this point, right? But
2040 goal is I think to give an incentive to countries to actually do the investment, because then they get the European fundings, which I believe is 40% of the invested capital. Yeah, so the 2040 goal is really to give an incentive to country, deploy it earlier than later, because indeed normally the treaties say that by 2050 they should have the comprehensive network deployed. Now I think most countries now really believe also that ERTMS is the way to go and that they have to do it, but you really do come into the problem of deploying and of also capacity of simply engineers that work on it when everybody will start to want ETCS. Like in Belgium, we were the precursors, so we ran into the big complexity of being the first ones and of having all the problems in the world to actually develop it. So it was very slow in the beginning. The next countries that will start to deploy now in bulk capacity, they will have to fight between other countries of who gets the contract first and who gets the engineers to actually deploy it. So there's going to be an industrial limit also to what you can deploy. And it will again be a fight, a bit of the rich and the poor, then who can pay more to get the contracts with the suppliers.
Okay, thanks. So I think we can close the questions because we had quite a lot of questions. Is there, Marina, anything you want to say yourself to conclude the session, or do you think we can? Yeah, you can use this one.
Just a big thank you for having me tonight. It's really good to see that in one of your number one priorities, investing infrastructure, and of course, it was very reassuring to hear that you believe that investing in green infrastructure means investing in railway infrastructure, and we do believe that more and more people and goods will start using railways, because as you've seen the numbers, they're quite reassuring in terms of saving the environment. And yeah, take the train on the way back. Thank you.
So, thank you again for coming, and then our next session is a break until 8:30. We have a 9-minute break until 8:30. We start again at 8:30 sharp. So go not too far away, we start in 9 minutes again. think it's enabled because I'm speaking. Okay. I can put water infrastructure.
So I have to close that one.
Yeah, it says, but much down. It's slide 45 or so. I think. Yes. So yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the title slide is not necessary, but not one slide, but not more. Yeah. So there are now two short pitch presentations, one about water infrastructure, one about circular economy. I will do the one about water infrastructure. François will do the one about circular economy. Sorry. So I will speak more slowly. So if we will start with a question before we look to the data. So how can we make sure to increase the groundwater table and water resource? What would be the most effective? 20% more infiltration or 20% less water use? Who thinks 20% less water use? 4 people? 5 people? 6 people? 6 people? 6? Who thinks 20% more infiltration? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's 7. Slightly wins. I would think it's equally important. Nobody. 1 person. So 6 people think 20% less water use. 7 people think infiltration. So then we go to the next slide to see the answer. So actually, the answer is the infiltration, because this is that is the result of a study of actually a professor of the VUB. And there, yeah, sorry, the slides are in Dutch, but I will try to translate it. So, and there you see what happens by a 20% decrease in water use. And also what happens on the right, you see a 10% increase in infiltration and a 20% increase in infiltration. So what you see, for example, is that if we use 50% less water, then the more dark blue, the more water there is in the table, because this is the legend. So 50% less water use is less effective than 20% increased infiltration, because that adds a lot more water to the water table. So actually, in this calculation, so it's for the Limburg province in Belgium, is actually around 11 times difference. So 20% infiltrating more water, 20% more water, at 11 times the amount of water reserved to the groundwater table compared to 20% reduced water use. So there are two things about it. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that actually if we succeed in softening the surface, for example, in you can go to the next slide. If we succeed in softening the surface and, for example, making some concrete areas, some beton, so as you see here on the floor, if we succeed to convert that to some grass or plants or trees, then more water will infiltrate in the surface, and it means if we can do that in a sufficient amount, then actually we can sustain our water consumption patterns while solving the water problems. On the other hand, if we don't do that, then it's of course more difficult. So yeah, you see that you can go to the next slide. That's maybe a bit too technical. So yeah, to show some examples, but in some French cities, we see that, for example, even the tram tracks are on grass, and that are all small things that help to achieve the goal. Also, you see the same street on the left. You see, the ugly gray beton street, and you see the same street a little bit more nice looking, and also, yeah, of course, you see vegetation. You see trees, plants, grass, and that all helps to increase infiltration. But also, people at home can contribute to that, because if they remove some stones in their garden and replace it with trees and plants and so on, then that will increase the water infiltration into the groundwater table. And I think there's one last slide. It does not only mitigate drought, but also floods, because as more water can infiltrate into the groundwater table, there's less runoff, and there's more capacity of water that can infiltrate into the ground. So actually softening the surface on some places, or many places, it not only mitigates and adapts to drought and make sure that we can continue our water consumption pattern, but it also prevents the most extreme floods. I mean, it reduces, not prevents, but reduces the amount of floods. And so yeah, it's a combination of local measures and urban planning measures. That's it. Any questions?
Hi. Just for my understanding, a water table. What exactly? Oh, hello. I'm Xander. Hello, everybody. I was wondering, what exactly is a water table, and why is it important?
Yes. I think so we have water. Do you know the groundwater table? So we have water, surface water, we have groundwater, and I was talking about the groundwater table. And so below the surface, below the soil, a lot of water reserves are stored into our ecosystem. If you increase the amount of water that can infiltrate into the soil, to the surface, then those water reserves will increase. We saw sometimes during some summers that actually there were critical levels of groundwater tables in Flanders, in Belgium, on many places. And they were sometimes very, very, very critical that it became a threat to daily activities. And also people have recommended to not fill their swimming pool or to not wash their car. Increasing infiltration in that sense is a structural solution that structurally adds more water to the groundwater table. It's a more robust system because then we are more protected against both droughts and floods, even if we continue our water consumption pattern. Is it clear or?
Yeah, makes it a lot more clear. Thank you.
Yeah, I will come to there.
Yeah.
How easily can you, are those like the data you've just shared, how easily is that comparable across the continent for Europe? I mean, because it was a Belgium example, but does it easily translate for the rest?
It depends. There are some areas that are similar to Belgium, but yeah, there are of course also the more mountain. I mean, in the more mountain regions, it's completely different because it depends, right? Yeah. Some areas are comparable, others less. But, yeah, I didn't show it on the map, but yeah.
Is it on? Yes, it is. I should start up as well. Hello, George, General Secretary. My question. Oh no, you don't know she's.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello. Sorry, I'm so far back. I wanted to make Carlo walk back down again and walk back up, but I thought it'd take advantage of this. So, do you have any information about the role of different sorts of plants and how this sort of water retention works? So, what I'm getting at is it to do with, is more biodiversity in terms of different varieties of plants going to increase water retention, or is it sort of globally the same plant by plant?
Yeah, so indeed, it's a bit more detailed on the scope of the presentation. It was meant to be, but to try to answer. Of course, one part is the water infiltrates in the soil. So it means if you have the soft surface, that regardless of the type of the plants, there is some water that will infiltrate into the soil. But indeed, it can be that certain types of plants, they retain more water in their leaves compared to others. I see two questions.
Thank you. So, remind me your name? George. François, by the way, yeah. So the answer is the more ecosystems there are in the soil, the more water retention there will be. One of the big problems that we face with monoculture today is because those soils are completely dead. And we have to revive them every year by putting, fertilizers and these cocktails of microorganisms, so that actually the plants can absorb the nitrogen from the fertilizers. And what happens on those soils when it rains, it all washes off, and it actually washes off the land, and it actually creates a lot of like imbalances with the minerals and all that. Anyway, that's why there's a kind of a desertification kind of process that follows when you talk about monoculture. So of course there are three kind of categories. There's the concrete, the tarmac, then like in urban areas, then you have the monograss and the fields that we know, and then you have the complex kind of ecosystems. Those are going to be on a scale of, in terms of efficiency, those will be at the top of that efficiency chart.
Thank you. So, you had a question, or? Sure. Yeah. So last question, because we have to move on afterwards.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you can
okay.
Go ahead.
So hi, Charles, European Board. Good seeing you, Bram. So my question, which I guess is somewhat linked to George's previous question, is so I think right now, at least in my mind, we've focused a lot on urban areas or kind of areas which are already built up a lot, but then at least, for example, in France, we've got huge problems of droughts. Even like now in the winter, there are emergency measures that have to be taken because of this issue of water shortage. But sorry, my question is, what kind of policies could be implemented in areas which are to some extent already green, in rural areas, for example? Are there policies which can also increase infiltration?
Well, it's true that even I will say something and I will get to it. I will say one thing. Just to clarify, this map is from the map we saw is from the Limburg province in Belgium, so it's a quite rural area actually. So So even in rural areas, if you it can be very small things on very small places in front of homes, parkings. There are many places where it still can contribute in rural areas, but it's even indeed more important in urban areas than now.
So it's Charles, correct? Yes, Charles. So actually, we have to understand there's two different things. There's water retention, and then there's increasing the capacity of the water beds. So those are two kind of, they're not exactly the same. Water retention is the capacity of a soil to retain the water in that soil. And then later on is those, because those are like, when they say water beds, those are like big wells of reserves of water. Of course, some of them it's just, in the water, but also there's like caves and they get, bigger and smaller. So those are not totally the same thing. But to answer your question, and the reason I'm taking the microphone is that yesterday I was writing on climate change mitigation policy, and I was focusing on agriculture and forestry. And the truth is that it goes back to the complexity of the ecosystems in the soil. So when you talk about agriculture, what you can do, you can encourage new forms of agriculture that are based on the building of ecosystems. And if you've heard of permaculture and others, there's regenerative agriculture, there's syntropic agriculture, there's a whole plethora of new alternative forms of agriculture that are based on this knowledge of building ecosystems, as opposed to doing it the Cartesian way, which is just like fields of, thousands of just one thing. Imagine a concert where everybody's playing the violin, there's just one instrument. Well, that's what we do in agriculture. The idea is to create an orchestra with different instruments, and that's the challenge, and those things are being developed, and those things will actually improve the quality of the soil, the CO2 retention of that soil, and also the water retention. So that, I hope that's an answer to your question. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have to move on to the next presentation. So it's also a short pitch presentation, but about the circular economy. François, you have to.
Yeah, that's me. All right. Okay. Well, yeah, good segue. Thank you, Bram. All right. Carlo, can I have the most beautiful flag in my back? Oh, wait. Really, you're going to Google to find it? You went on Google to all right. Forget the screen. I'm doing this without slides. That's how I do my presentations. So Bram asked me to do a 5-minute presentation on the circular economy. So I'm going to try to do that. But I'm going to try to make it exciting. So the first question is, have you heard that we might be changing the name of our geological era? Have you heard? Yes, Rainier. Coca-Cola scene. Yeah, we're in the Holocene today, but geologists are thinking about renaming our geological era to the, have you heard, the name? Yes? The chicken era. Yes, the Anthropocene, that's right. The era of man. And what is the reason why? What is the major reason why they're talking about changing the name of this era, the name of our era? Yeah, Rainier.
Yeah, I heard in a podcast about dinosaurs recently, somebody suggest the Coca-Cola scene, because in 200 million years, if there's future humans looking back at this era, then they will probably find more fossilized Coca-Cola bottles than remains of human beings. But that's why I suggested that one. But what the reason for the Anthropocene is that the effect of of human beings on the entire ecosystem in the world is so immense that it's actually a new geological era.
Thank you, Rainier. Oh, thank you guys for coming forward. The answer is the extinction rate. The extinction rate right now is going through the roof, and it's comparable to the past extinction events in the past. And because of that, and now if I had to ask you, what are the two major reasons behind the biodiversity loss? What are the two major reasons, knowing that there's 5 of them? What are the two major ones, which would account for 60% of all the biodiversity loss? Yes, Carlo? You're close, but it's not, technically it's not that, yeah. But you're close. Yes, Charles? Yes, that's right, that's on land. And what's happening in the oceans? George? Yeah, it's overfishing. So if you take deforestation and overfishing, you have 60% of all the biodiversity loss that's on the planet. Climate change and pollution, climate change is around 5%, and pollution is another 4%. So if you add them together, there's still less than 10% of biodiversity losses due to those two things. Now, why am I talking about this, and how does this goes into like the circular economy? Because I want to talk to you about two examples of how the circular economy can contribute to making a better world and of solving this issue. And the two examples I'm going to give you, one is based on my personal experience as an entrepreneur in a very specific little area field, and of a friend of mine who works here in Belgium. And those two should give you an idea of what the circular economy is capable of doing. And the question I want to ask you, policymakers, present and future policymakers, is how can we support those kind of people, the François of 10 years ago and the Philip of today, who's, by the way, doing a lot of stuff in the Netherlands right now. Anyway, so that we can create a circular economy. So the two examples are this. The first one is, so I had this crazy idea back in the late 2000, which was like, let's take insects, let's feed them with the leftovers from the food chain, and those proteins, because insects are full of proteins, that's why chicken love to eat them. Let's process that and let's make a protein powder that we'll give to the animals who would normally eat insects if they were free, like the chickens I just mentioned, and the pigs and the fish. And the idea was awesome because 1/3 of everything we produce in the food chain is wasted at some point. So there's a huge volume, there's mountains and mountains of organic waste rotting in different places, and they're just wasted. So let's take that and let's give them to those people who have naturally evolved to consume that, insects, just let's use nature in a smart way. And then let's transform it into proteins, let's process those little larvae, and then let's give them back to the animals who would normally eat them. So that was the first idea. So that was my idea back in 2008. It became a startup. I raised 100,000 I went to Brazil, 5 different teams. I failed, I succeeded, I failed, I succeeded, and eventually I had to come back. But long story short, those who did the same thing here in Europe, in France, there's a company called Insect with a Y. They're considered to be one of the French unicorns. They are raising more than $100 million. Right now, I think the total amount is $300 million, and they're opening factories in the United States. And they have 2 factories here in Europe. In the Netherlands, Protix, same thing, same insect. Protix, Kies Arts, guy I knew, guy from Delft University, literally a rocket scientist. Literally, from Delft University, the crème de la crème from the Netherlands. Anyway, and he, of course, could convince any VC to like put, $1 million or $2 million, whatever. Am I jealous? Yes, I am. But is that unfair? I guess not. He did the hard work at Delft. And so that was one example of how the circular economy. Oh, and by the way, why is it solving the biodiversity loss? Because a lot of the fish that are fished in the ocean are transformed into powder. It's called fish meal, and that's what you feed the fish. The salmon that you eat in your restaurant are farmed salmon, and most of the protein they're eating comes from fish meal. So insect meal was a way of replacing fish meal, so of reducing the pressure we're having on the oceans. Thus, circular economy, solving the biodiversity loss issue, and valuing insects. That was one example. Now, I know how I went completely over time, so I really apologize, so I'm going to go really quickly. Philip has built the first giant 3D printer in Belgium, in Flanders, with the help of some Dutch engineers again. High five, Dutch people. Okay, yes. And his printer is called Colossus. And what they do is that they take recycled plastic, like used plastic, which is transformed into little, pellets, and they just feed it to Colossus. They have a computer. They say, okay, this is a table, this is a chair, this is anything you can think of, print it for me. And they do it. And now they're like growing, and they're going to Dubai, and they're going to New York, and they're doing everything, and they're going to open something in Amsterdam soon with the guy who invented those trolleys for babies. I don't know all the names. But anyway, but the thing is that when I was an entrepreneur, he as an entrepreneur, we were people waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, working from Monday, 5 o'clock in the morning, all the way until Saturday, 2 p.m., and then starting our job again on Sunday night. And that was nonstop. When you're an entrepreneur and you have something ambitious like this, you have no more life. It's just work, 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 work. And you have to do that, and you're taking huge risks, and you can fail. I'm an example of somebody who failed. Philip hasn't failed. I'm happy for him. He's succeeding very much. But the thing is that the risk that these people are taking are huge, but the trade-offs are humongous. And so, again, by telling you these two stories, I just want to make you visualize potentially a world where these entrepreneurs create a form of infrastructure in the background, a service that will help us create this circular economy. Okay, so that was pretty much my goal. Now, there's one thing that when we're discussing about trains, when we decide to invest in train infrastructure, in trains and all that, we can use the circular economy. I'll give you a very practical example. The seats that you have in buses and trains. What's the material? It's fabric, it's generally synthetic. Meaning what? All those seats and a lot of the components that you do for those, you don't have to get the raw material. You can actually create an infrastructure of recuperating all the plastic or all the raw materials within your country through the waste management project, infrastructure, and then funneling that towards these infrastructure projects of, creating a world, a CO2-free world, by 2050, right? And very elegantly just rerouting those resources to furnish all those trains, train stations, and that's just us being smart as policymakers. We're going to make a project, we're going to make trains, but whatever we can resource through the circular economy, that should be what we should be aiming for. So two things, two takeaways. Create the infrastructure that supports the entrepreneurs who are taking the risk with these new ideas. And second, when we develop our policies, try to see what can be sourced by the materials that exist within an economy and how those can be recycled into, the different components of this infrastructure we're building. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll already show the QR code and then one question. We will already show the QR code. We will repeat the same polls as we did in the beginning of the event. So enough for the. We can now also show the results, but of course, for the people who entered the event very late, it's maybe a bit more difficult because we want to see how your opinion evolved during the event. But if you missed half of the presentations, you can just skip questions if you don't feel comfortable answering. So scan the QR code, go to menti.com, fill in the code, and meanwhile we have time for one question about for François if anyone has a question. Any questions? So we offer one question, if there's one question. Yeah, toch?
Hi, Thor from Denmark, also a member of the European Board. Since we just have one question, I figured I'd give you a difficult one, because I'm fully on board with everything you've presented. But we have a quite relevant case recently in Denmark with the fish powder fodder for chicken, which in the end turned out to actually cause PFAS-raised levels in ecological eggs, whereas the non-bio eggs actually were safer to eat than the biological eggs that were raised on fish fodder. That's a long way to say, how do we handle the potential pollutants that could come with recycling material from industry? Because it's of course good that we don't have to create new materials, by chopping down forests or by overfishing.
Yeah.
But how do we handle that potential for pollutants?
Okay, thank you very much, Thor. That's a very, very good question. Now, and actually, I might have a resemblance of an answer. The thing is that when we design our products, everything we design, there's a moment where we think, okay, the bottle has to be made of these materials and this shape, et cetera, et cetera. We have to go back to that drawing board. Why? Because those products, those materials that are used are designed in such a way that they will be downcycled as they go through their life cycle. Downcycled, the quality and the value of them will go down. But if you choose the right materials at the beginning, you can make sure that after the life cycle, that thing is going to still keep the same quality. And once it dies, well, like it's past its life cycle, it will enter a new life cycle, another one, where the quality of it's going to either be the same or actually improved. We talk about upcycling in the circular economy, which is a challenge because it really means you have to redesign the whole thing. And one thing that I was suggesting in our Belgium circular economy policy is to give a grade of circularity to industrial products in general, in industry, which means that you have to design your product in such a way that once it's over, when it's dead, when it's the life cycle is done, that product can enter another cycle as a raw material, and that it's not going to pollute, and it's going to be it's going to be like food. In other words, we want to inspire, like the circular economy wants to inspire itself from nature. In nature, there is no waste. Everything is food for something else. And that's not what we do today. And it's a design problem. So the solution from a political perspective is, okay, because there's ways of grading this. There's a way when you, as a consultant in the circular economy, I'm not going to say names, but those people exist, you can go to a company and you can say, okay, this is how you operate, and this is your product. Are you operating in a circular economical way? Is your product designed in a circular economical way? And you have two different grades. And that's focused just on the product. Well, if you have a gold level, that means that once that product is over or done, either it's going to biodegrade, or the technical material it's made of can have value in another production chain. And therefore you do that. So in other words, grade all the companies, how they operate their products, and those who have a bad grade will have to pay a circularity tax. Those who have a low grade, like a high grade, like a good grade, they don't pay that tax, depending on how good they're on that scale. And that money that you're taxing is going to be invested in innovation, in those things that are necessary for those economies and those products and all that to become circular. And there's two ways of financing, either the consultancy necessary for those companies to redesign their whole factories and their products. So you want to give them an incentive. So I encourage, subsidizing part of the consultancy necessary for redesigning the products and the factories. And on the other hand, reinvesting in innovation. So like startups like Philippe or Francois, 10 years ago, have a little bit of a starting capital or like a risk-free capital or a loan without interest so that they can become entrepreneurs. So to sum up, design. How you design your product. By designing it properly, you'll get rid of the pollution that comes with it.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, we see that 11 people are ready to vote. So we will.
It's here. I put a presentation here.
Yeah. So.
Next, or does it work?
Yeah, next.
It's loading.
So already 8 people voted. So we wait until we have 10 or 11, like we had for the last questions. Yeah, they're the new ones. Yeah, I refreshed the results, but I restored the old ones. So. So you
Ready? Who has not voted yet?
can just click on hash to show the results.
Hash?
Yeah, click on hash to share the results.
Hash.
Yeah.
H. Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. The polls have closed. Thank you.
So, how important is to include the following topics in the electoral priorities? Railway infrastructure 9, very important. Circular economy 7, around 7. Water infrastructure 9. 3D printing we didn't talk about today, so it's logically a little bit lower. And 5G coverage is around 7. So railway infrastructure is the winner, let's say. But we can go to the next slide.
I guess the presentation about the train has been complicated.
So this is a bit more technical, and if you weren't here during the first presentation, it's maybe more difficult to compare with the beginning, but yeah. No, you give a score to from 0 to 10, so you can rank them in your brain, and then give a lower score to what you rank lower. But wait until we have 14, 15. Yeah, we can show the results, I think. H. Yeah, H. Yeah. So. So yeah, most are quite high, between 7 and 9. The winner is the bicycle infrastructure and to install a tram city in or similar urban rail system in all cities with more than 100k inhabitants, with 8.4, and the bicycle with 8.9. Yeah, we can go to the next one. I think we skipped one question.
I skipped one?
Skipped one question, yes.
It should be this one then.
Yes.
Ooh. You have to choose between the two statements: prioritize private electric cars or prioritize rail and car sharing. It's just one bar.
Yeah, we can share the results, I think.
Best of luck for next year. Okay, we ready?
Yes.
Wow.
8.4, so prioritize rail and car sharing. Yeah, we can go to the last question then.
If you get a sign-up page, it's normal. It means that you reached the end. Congratulations.
We can share the results, I think. So, yeah, most people are concerned about most things. So, I think maybe no, but. I think what maybe interesting if you compare to the results in the first session is that in the first session the people were more concerned about the environmental impact of lithium and cobalt mining for smartphones and tablets. That was a lot higher than for electric cars. But after we saw in the presentation that it uses actually a lot more lithium, 8,000 times more lithium than smartphones, the concern is increasing there. And I think the other questions are quite similar compared to the first ones. Maybe human health also a little bit increases because it was lower than carbon emissions, but yeah, it's quite similar for the rest, I think. So thanks for participating in the poll. We will use it in our statistics and in our presentations. And then we, yeah, question.
Yeah, no, it's nice. What I don't know. I wanted to question / comment on how we want to implement these issues in our communications, because yes, all these things are, for example, concerning. But if you go out and say, well, the most important thing is bicycle infrastructure, that will be the top thing on our program, it will probably not be received very well. If you hear in Brussels a bit the debate about this, I am very annoyed because I'm a cyclist of every day throughout Brussels, and what annoys me is that the infrastructure development that they are doing is shit. However, their political campaigning on how we have to do more bikes and it's really cars are bad, bikes are good, exacerbates the people, and actually you get the worst of both worlds. You get shit bike infrastructure, you get pissed off people on the road that want to drive over you every day. No, but this is really the case, and I think we have to be a little bit more, not a bit more, we have to be careful about this if we go to a campaign in the future on how we want to profile this, because we don't want to oppose all means of transport. You have to still understand that the car is still 60% of travelers, which probably means 60% of voters. So it's something that should not be ignored. And to say, look, we are proposing alternatives, that doesn't mean that we're like going to forbid you to do whatever you have to do every day. Yeah, that was my remark I wanted to do on this.
Yeah, thanks, and I agree on most of the things, and I think most of the things we also touch in our program. For example, in the bicycle infrastructure part, we say that Brussels is doing things regarding bicycle infrastructure, but we say that if you look to better examples in the Netherlands, that they're certainly not doing the best thing possible. Yeah, yeah. So then we go to the next session, and then we welcome the European co-president of Volt Europa, Reinier van.
And is it correct that I'm the last one of the event? Okay. Hi, everybody. I think I've met most of you already and worked with most of you. But for the ones that I haven't met yet, my name is Reinier van Landschot, and I'm one of the two co-presidents of Volt. And the other co-president, Francesca Romana Duantono, isn't here because she is going to Greece, where there is the founding General Assembly of Volt Greece, where we will participate in elections soon, so that's super exciting. First of all, thank you very much for having us, and thank you for everybody who is actively participating in Volt in Belgium. I think Volt Belgium has gone through a very good development in the past 3 years. It went from a team with a lot of turmoil to stability under the guidance of Jordi, who's sitting over there, but also from stability it went into a positive direction, and I think with the current board in the last year we've seen a lot of positive developments in Volt Belgium, with new city teams getting started, with a clear strategy for the upcoming year and the upcoming years actually, and I'm very confident that Volt Belgium will have positive election results, multiple, because there are so many elections next year. I prepared this entire speech while traveling towards Brussels today, but it's also Friday, 9:15. The group is relatively small. Most of you know a lot of stuff that I'm going to say because I've said it before, and it's not that often that we actually interact face to face. So my goal is actually to skip everything that I prepared and go towards socializing as quickly as possible. But before we do that, have a quick plenary round of introductions from who's who from the European level that are now here, so you can know that if you are interested in a specific topic, that you can reach out to that person. And if you're really curious about what I was going to say, then come up to me during the drink. I had 10 headlines of things that annoyed the shit out of me in the past week and that I was stressed about. There's a camera. Where's the camera? Right there? Okay. I will pass the mic around and we'll start here.
Should we go next to him? Yeah. This is a process. Oh, we put it together. That makes sense. Why not? Here we are. Well, I can go?
Yes, go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jennifer. I just started working for Volt a week ago, actually, and I'm the new... Thank you. And I'm the new digital marketing expert for the European team.
I'm Rosa. Thank you, Jennifer. So actually, maybe it's obvious, but we work together. Yeah. So I started a month ago. I'm working on media relations, bringing us to the press for the European side of Volt. But I also live here until July. So I'm looking towards a Belgian team on like maybe structuring some events, maybe working a bit on our media presence. We have quite some ideas. Yeah. Limited time, but I think we can get things done. And I'm really happy to be here, actually. This is, I think, the first time I see the rest of my group, but also like more Volters than a couple of faces in a screenshot. So it's super nice to be here. And here you go.
Thanks, Rosa. I'm Johannes. I'm the treasurer of Volt Europa, and also one of the very few full-timers for Volt Europa. So it's a fun thing to have now a growing group of colleagues, because we're going to continue to hire people, which is fantastic. And I'm also looking forward to managing a bigger and bigger team.
I'm no longer a full-timer. I'm Anouk. My name is Anouk. I am part of the board and I'm responsible for fundraising, events, so hosting the GAs and our legal stuff. So if there's anything about that, come to me.
And you're also the previous General Secretary, which Johannes also was. We have another General Secretary online, George. Myself, I'm Thor, also from the European Board. I used to be the policy lead. And that's why I'm also still responsible for policy. And I'm also a software developer by trade, so I'm responsible for tech. And I'm from Denmark.
Hey everyone, so I'm Charles. I'm also a member of the board. Within the board, I mainly focus on building our economic vision, and I also work a lot on governance topic, so particularly any changes to the statutes or internal regulations that you might have seen or that you will continue to see. I'm usually one of the people working on that. So if you have any questions on that, I'm more than happy to answer your questions or clarify anything.
And as Thor very kindly introduced me, I'm George. I'm one of the co-general secretaries with Leaping, who couldn't be here today. I'm originally from the UK, as you can hear, and I get lots of compliments on that. But it's nothing I did to deserve it. But basically, yeah. So I'm living in Luxembourg, so that's a really cool thing to be here in Brussels. That's got a similar vibe to Luxembourg, and it's actually cool to see how you guys are. Well, we'll debate that later. And yeah, so if you have any questions about the day-to-day operations and stuff like that, then please feel free to be in touch, because that's my what I do basically. Yeah.
And we have Lucas. Lucas is entering and leaving again. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas is also part of the European board, and he now gets 15 seconds to introduce himself.
Wait, what am I supposed to say? Introduce yourself. Hey. Hello, hi. So I'm Lucas from Volt Austria. I'm a board member together with those amazing, beauty people here. I work with mostly the countries across close to Austria with an expansion, so mostly Czechia, Slovakia, So we got the Slovakians. Yeah. Good. So right now it's very exciting times. We're just now establishing Vote Slovakia, and now we also have the future leaders as well here with Vote Slovakia. If you guys want to introduce yourself as well really quickly.
I'm Lucia, very nice to meet you. I live in Brussels and now I'm somehow transitioning. Let's see what's ahead of us. And we'll hang around here so we can talk more.
Thanks a lot. I'm Rick, also with Volt Slovakia, Volt Slovensko. And really, we think there are big opportunities and we're really excited to join the family. So thanks.
Thanks. Lovely that you are here. And as said, we're all here, so let's make the most of this moment and socialize. The very short 3-sentence version of the speech that I had prepared is, first sentence, if you flip through a newspaper these last weeks, you get confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that it is time in Europe for a pan-European grassroots movement like Volt. That's why I'm super happy that we've been going for 7 years and that Volt is at the best position it has ever been in. If you look in terms of members, active members, how professional we are, in how many countries we're active, how much enthusiasm there is in society, but also within Volt. So I'm incredibly confident and excited about the upcoming year and what the European elections will bring. I'll leave it at that. Let's spend as much time to get to know each other as possible over a drink in the coming hours. And if you have any other questions, feel free to, ask me. Ciao.
All right. Thank you to the European Board and the European Secretary Generals, and congratulations to Volt Slovakia, correctly, thank you. I'll take the opportunity to just say some final words. Some final words before we conclude the event. Some final words. Thank you. So, for those that don't know me yet, and also for the people at home, I'm Carlo Giudice. I'm one of the co-presidents. My co-president, Johanna, is unfortunately not there today, but she's greeting as well. We are very proud about the amazing track that the policy team has been doing with Bram van den Inden as a policy lead and all the policy members and all the experts that have been contributing. Today is just one of the many events that we are doing in public to present the Volt policies for the federal and the regional elections. There will be some more coming, one on the 22nd of March. It will be in Leuven. 22nd of March in Leuven, about mobility. So you're all more than welcome to join. In the coming weeks, there will be also more exciting events. We will have, for instance, on the 22nd of April, the Belgian General Assembly. It will happen in Wallonia, where we will then present all of our policies towards a General Assembly. And then we also will meet you in Bucharest in June, on the 3rd and 4th of June. So we are very much looking forward. If you have any questions, you can of course always reach out to the Belgian board, but also to the European board. We are there to guide you to the right people that can help you either in becoming active or also to contribute, and also, well, if you have some bucks left over, to donate also to Volt. So thank you, everyone. I wish everyone an exciting evening. We'll move over to the socialing part. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
you.